It begins with a salute, a stiff posture, and a face that must never flinch. For a young North Korean woman joining the army, duty comes before everything. Before family, before comfort, before her own voice. In the eyes of the regime, she is not a daughter or a dreamer. She is a tool, a body to be molded, monitored, and controlled. Thousands of women are conscripted into the Korean People's Army every year, some as young as 17. They arrive at training camps with tightly braided hair, plain faces, and the fear of failure in their eyes. But what they don't yet know is that their orders go far beyond military drills. Behind the walls of the barracks lies a secret no one dares to speak. In these all-female units, a commander holds more than just rank. He holds the right to decide everything: what each woman wears, when she eats, and most disturbingly, where and with whom she sleeps. It's called assignment rotation. Officially, it's a logistical necessity to keep order in crowded sleeping quarters. But unofficially, it's something much darker. The commander chooses, the woman obeys, and no one talks about what happens after lights out. New recruits are watched closely. Their behavior is recorded. A smile at the wrong moment, a glance that lingers too long, a refusal to entertain a senior officer. All of these can mark a woman for punishment. Or worse. The stories that leak across the border are always the same. Quiet sobs in the night, girls disappearing from the bunks and returning with hollow eyes, promotion in exchange for silence. One defector described her first week in the barracks like this: "We marched all day and feared the night even more." She was summoned 3 times to the commander's tent. Each time she had to bow. Each time she had to lie still. Each time she was told it was her duty. And if she said no, she would be labeled disloyal, a threat to morale, a traitor to the revolution. In North Korea, disobedience is not a private matter. It is political. It is dangerous. And for women in uniform, it is rarely forgiven. The daily life of a female soldier is filled with contradictions. By day, she must appear strong, unshakable, devoted to the state. By night, she becomes property, loaned, offered, or taken. The commander chooses, the soldier endures, and the silence becomes part of the uniform. But how did this system begin? And why does it still exist? In Part 2, we'll dive into the roots of this disturbing tradition, how it's justified within the regime, and how some women are beginning to resist, even when resistance means risking everything. To understand how the female soldier became vulnerable property inside the North Korean military, you have to understand how control is built into the system from the very first moment. From the minute a girl enters conscription, she loses her name. She becomes a number, a unit, a symbol of loyalty. Her hair is cut, her possessions taken, her family left behind. What she gains is a uniform and a promise that she will serve her country with honor, but that promise comes with a hidden clause. It says she will obey without question, no matter the command. And some commands are never spoken out loud. In the tightly organized structure of the Korean People's Army, men outrank women almost by default. There are official regulations that prohibit harassment or sexual abuse, but everyone inside the system knows that rank protects the abuser, not the victim. If a commander wants a woman to report to his tent, he does not need to explain why. He only needs to make a note in the roster. The other women in the unit will understand immediately. They will not ask, they will not speak, because they know it could be them next. And breaking the silence is more dangerous than enduring the abuse. The roots of this cruelty go deeper than just military hierarchy. In North Korea, the body of a woman has always been seen through the lens of sacrifice. During the famine of the 1990s, girls were often the first to go without food. Mothers were expected to starve so sons could eat. Daughters were married off in secret for survival. That legacy never disappeared. It just changed shape. In the military, it transformed into a culture of sacrifice disguised as honor. A woman who serves well is not just praised for her shooting accuracy or discipline. She is praised for her obedience, her silence, her willingness to be used. And this is not a fringe issue. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of female soldiers experience some form of sexual abuse during their service. Yet, nearly all cases go unreported. Why? Because the punishment for speaking out is often worse than the abuse itself. A woman who reports a commander risks being labeled as mentally unstable or ideologically impure. She may be reassigned to hard labor, or quietly discharged and blacklisted for life. If her family is informed, they may be punished too. Guilt by association is a real threat in North Korea, and it is enough to keep most women quiet forever. Still, some whisper, in secret, in code. One former soldier described how girls would leave small signs, folded socks at the end of the bed, a hairpin stuck into the wall, to warn others that a room was not safe tonight. These were acts of quiet rebellion, desperate, symbolic, and painfully brave. In Part 3, we will uncover more testimonies from those who escaped, what they saw, what they suffered, and how some of them are now using their voices to fight back from across the border. Because while the regime may control everything inside, it cannot yet erase what these women remember. When a North Korean woman defects, she carries more than just fear across the border. She carries secrets. And some of those secrets are too heavy to speak aloud, even after escape. Many women who served in the military never tell anyone what really happened inside those barracks. The shame, the pain, the moments of stolen control. They bury it deep, under layers of silence and survival. But a few, just a few, choose to speak, and their stories are devastating. One former lieutenant told of a female unit stationed near the Chinese border, where each woman was required to take shifts in the quote, commander's quarters. The official reason, night duty. The truth? Ritualized abuse. The commander, a man in his 40s, would call one girl at a time. No one dared say no. She was expected to clean, then serve tea, then stay. If she returned with bruises, she was told to be proud, to see it as proof of her loyalty. That same woman, after defecting, tried to file a testimony with international investigators. But halfway through the interview, she broke down. She asked to stop. Her translator said later, she wasn't crying because of what happened, she was crying because she thought it didn't matter. Another woman described how girls who resisted were assigned to the worst labor, digging trenches in winter, carrying supplies barefoot, sent to frontline outposts without proper gear. In one case, a girl who reported a senior officer disappeared the next day. Her friends were told she had been relocated. They never saw her again. But there are stories of resistance too, quiet ones, like the woman who taught her entire unit to lie still, expressionless, when summoned. She trained them to repeat the same words, "I am unwell, I cannot walk." She convinced her fellow soldiers to fake illness in rotation, delaying the commander's nightly visits until he lost interest. It didn't stop the system, but it gave them time, space, dignity. Others resisted by writing, scratching coded messages into soap bars, slipping tiny folded papers into latrine walls, passing warnings from one barracks to another. These tiny rebellions became lifelines, proof that not every woman broke. Not every woman stayed silent. For the few who escaped, their battle didn't end at the border. Many struggled with trauma, guilt, and isolation. In South Korea or China, they were often treated with suspicion, sometimes even mocked when they tried to speak of what had been done to them, because their truth sounded too monstrous, too brutal to be real. But it was real, and it still is. In the final part, we'll look at what can be done. Are there international efforts to document these crimes? Is anyone listening to these women? And can the silence that ruled the barracks finally be broken, for good? The truth about what happens to North Korean women in uniform is no longer just a rumor whispered across borders. It is being documented, case by case, voice by voice. Organizations like the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea and the United Nations Commission of Inquiry have begun compiling testimonies from former female soldiers. These reports contain chilling patterns: abuse by superior officers, coercion disguised as loyalty, punishment for silence, and punishment for speaking. But even with the evidence growing, justice still feels distant. Why? Because North Korea remains one of the most closed societies in the world. There are no independent courts, no investigative journalists, no legal aid for the victims, and for every woman who manages to escape and speak out. There are hundreds still inside, enduring the same system, waiting in the dark. Some diplomats argue that public pressure is the key, that more voices, more exposure, and more international outrage could force change. But others know the regime is built to ignore shame. In a country where even famine was hidden from the world for years, what chance does a soldier suffering have of reaching the top? And yet, the women continue to talk. Slowly, bravely. On YouTube, in interviews, in refugee centers. Some have even joined global human rights movements. They translate their pain into policy. They campaign for sanctions. They testify at hearings. They write memoirs, not to be pitied, but to be heard. One former soldier now works as an activist in Seoul. When asked what she wants the world to understand, she said, "We didn't wear uniforms to be heroes. We wore them because we had no choice. But silence was also a choice. And I choose to speak." That sentence alone cuts deeper than any statistic, because it reveals what North Korea's system fears most. Not weapons, not foreign threats, but women who refuse to stay quiet. Women who survived and now demand accountability. What can be done? For one, listening matters. Sharing these stories. Believing them. Supporting organizations that offer aid and protection to defectors. Pressuring governments to keep human rights violations in North Korea on the global agenda. But perhaps most of all, remembering that behind every uniform was a girl who once dreamed of something better. Who believed the lies. Who trusted the system. And who now lives with the scars. Not all wounds are visible. Not all battles are fought on fields. And sometimes, the strongest warriors are the ones who had to survive without ever firing a shot. This was the story of the commander who chose who sleeps where, and the women who could not refuse. But now, finally, some of them are choosing what to say. And the world is listening.